in the first place. You see these polls where they're polling Democrats. How's Trump doing? Oh, he's down. They're polling Democrats. The system is corrupt, and it's rigged, and it's broken.
Folks, what's going on here? What's going on? Our country is rigged, it's crooked, and it's broken. Job-killing Obamacare is just one more way the system is rigged.
She lives the high life at your expense, making money off the rigged system, and it is a rigged system. Are you starting to agree with me about the rigged system?
Let's bring in Judy Miller, Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter, author, and Fox News contributor. Lynn Sweet is Washington bureau chief for the Chicago Sun-Times. Welcome to both of you. We have heard, Judy, that rigged system line quite a few times, but it's coming more and more frequently now. What is the purpose, would you guess, from Donald Trump?
Well, I think the purpose is that it's simply more convenient for Donald Trump to blame the rigged system and the rigged polling system and the rigged polls than it is to face up to the facts that if those polls hold and they are accurate, then he will wind up being the presidential race's biggest loser. I mean, that is something that is just antithetical to the Trump brand. So, of course, he wants to add pollsters to his ever-growing list of enemies. I mean, Donald Trump's enemies list rivals Richard Nixon. You have Hillary Rodham Clinton and other career politicians. You have the elite media. That's us, perhaps. I'm not quite sure. You have bankers, finance people. You have rich donors. Now you have pollsters. Of course, blame people who are giving you the bad news. It's vintage Trump. He did find time, however, even though he's no longer investing in his own campaign, he gave zero money, according to the last financial data that have been disclosed, but he did find time to start up Trump Tower TV on Facebook. So I think we see the future in Donald Trump.
But, Lynn, one of the criticisms of longtime political watchers is that if you tell people, your own supporters, that the system is rigged and the fix is in and there's corruption everywhere, maybe even your own supporters aren't going to go out and vote for you because they think it's a done deal that you're not going to win.
See, that's the surprising lack of information that flowed down to Donald Trump, that when you talk about voter suppression, which Michelle Obama did in campaigning with Hillary Clinton yesterday in North Carolina, it cuts both ways. If you say the system is rigged, it could do two things. It could motivate the turnout of your opponent, which is how the Clinton forces, and Michelle Obama is a big one of those forces, is trying to use it. If you're a Trump supporter and your guy keeps telling you the election's over, you're not helping your own turnout. So it's another self-inflicted wound. But I just want to go back one quick point about the polls. Trump lived by the polls during the primary. It was basically his Trump speech, saying how well he was doing. In primaries, they only poll Republicans. In a general election, it's true, you poll Democrats, you also poll Republicans and independents. Hasn't the message gotten through to him?
But, Judy, to be fair, the stories, when you look at the media analysis of the stories coming out against Donald Trump, by far the preponderance of the reporting about Trump is negative.
Actually, that's true, and yet a new study that was done by the Kennedy Center, at Harvard, suggested that Donald Trump's coverage, especially in the beginning, was far more positive than Clinton's, and that Clinton's coverage was really very, very negative. Look, at this point, the issue is if independents are going to decide this race, and clearly they are, and you know that you have to reach them, is talking about a rigged system the way to do that? Having alienated women, and particularly older women, having alienated Hispanics, having not convinced Black Americans that you're going to make their lives better and that they're currently living in a hellhole, as he says, you're only left with kind of uneducated white men as your base. And independents will not respond, I don't think, to the rigged system message, but we'll see.
Is it possible, Lynn, that there could be a surprise at the end of this election, despite the polling, despite you know, the battleground states and so forth, and the projections that Hillary Clinton is going to win this in a row?
Well, we're in the midst of a surprise right now, and every day there's a new batch of WikiLeaks that are coming out. We're in, what, day 21. So the Clinton campaign has to deal with these emails that are damaging to the campaign because they lift up the curtain on the inner workings of the Clinton Foundation and of Bill Clinton's paydays. Now, if Donald Trump had big-name surrogates who want to just stay on message and flood the zone in events in swing states, local TV, that's usually what campaigns do. I think we've spent a lot of time throughout this campaign season in saying this isn't a typical campaign. So, yeah, we're in the midst of an October surprise. Yeah. It's just a multi-day surprise.
There have been a lot of surprises all the way through, and I just wonder whether there might be another one November 8th. But we'll see. Lynn Sweet.
There could be.
Judith Miller. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Well, new battleground state polls with Election Day just 11 days away. What they mean for both candidates in the final sprint of this campaign. Well, this breaking now, Iraqi forces taking aim at a town just south of Mosul where ISIS has reportedly carried out dozens of executions in an apparent attempt to keep the population from joining the U.S.-led offensive. Benjamin Hall is live in Erbil, Iraq with the very latest. Benjamin?
Hi, Jenna. Well, while all the focus is on the offensive for Mosul city itself, out west by the Syrian border where we just were, things are very different. ISIS remains on the offensive. They will continue to attack Kurdish forces with hundreds of troops and dozens of VBIDs, and that has been called the Forgotten Front. We were up there and we met U.S. Special Forces veteran David Shumat, 62 years old, from Florida. He's been fighting alongside Kurdish forces, and they've been under heavy fire and artillery almost daily, and they're getting no support.
We've received no support, actually. In the year that I've been here with General Hakar, we've never seen an American officer or an official come to this front line.
Now, that front line overlooks the main ISIS supply route to Mosul, and the men here say that they can watch 500 ISIS cars move back and forth, resupplying that city. But there's nothing they can do. Their rules of engagement forbid them from going for those cars, which is quite amazing. Now, we saw something else out there today, and that is the graves that ISIS left behind where they buried the many thousands of Yazidi people that they murdered. One of the many mass graves that has been found in the area. It's hard to imagine how hundreds of people at a time were rounded up at their villages and brought here into this barren landscape, lined up against a trench and systematically shot. But that is exactly what's happened, and you can see the evidence. You can see the bullet holes in the skulls. You can see the remains of their clothes. This is where hundreds of people were executed by ISIS. Now, those were babies, those were children, those were families, and the big worry now is that as the battle for Mosul itself gets underway, ISIS, feeling pressurized, might start to lash out and commit more atrocities like that. Jenna?
Benjamin Hall with some very important reporting for us today. Benjamin, thank you very much. ISIS is just one of the major foreign policy threats facing our next commander-in-chief, who will lead a military bruised by years of war overseas while also undergoing a profound cultural transformation here at home. Don't miss a special America's Election Headquarters look at how we fight, airing tomorrow at 8 and again at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, anchored by Brett Baer, featuring exclusive interviews with Defense Secretary Ash Carter and many other current and former military leaders. That's right here on the Fox News Channel.
Some new polls are shedding light on the state of play in the race for the White House as we get closer to Election Day. According to the latest Pew Research national poll, Hillary Clinton is holding a 6-point lead over Donald Trump, 46 to 40% in a 4-way survey, all 4 of the best-known candidates included. According to a new Quinnipiac University swing state poll, Trump edges Clinton in Georgia 44 to 43%. In Iowa, they are flat out tied, 44% each. In North Carolina, Clinton leads Trump by 4 points, 47 to 43%. And in Virginia, Clinton leads Trump by 12 points, 50 to 38%. Let's talk about the race with David Webb, Fox News contributor and host of the David Webb Show on Sirius XM Patriot. Rick Unger is also with us, Democratic strategist, Forbes.com senior political contributor and co-host of Steele and Unger on Sirius XM. So of those individual state races that we just talked about, any one of them stand out to you as a big surprise?
Well, I'll tell you, the things that I'm looking at right now, North Carolina, I think, is critical. There's no real path, I don't think, for Mr. Trump if he can't win that. But I'll tell you what they did not publish today. There is data out on what's happening in the suburbs of Philadelphia. I find that incredibly important. It appears that Hillary Clinton has a sizable lead in the early voting in those areas. Pennsylvania, to me, without Pennsylvania, there is no roadmap for Mr. Trump. I think that is going to be the critical state this time.
But you would expect the suburbs of Philadelphia to be a stronghold for Hillary Clinton. It's in the outlying areas of that very big state, the coal country, where Donald Trump is expected to do well.
Yeah, and as Philadelphia goes, that matters for Clinton. But then you go north, you go to Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Lehigh Valley, that's had an increase in population. Work your way out to Harrisburg, another town that went bankrupt, and out even around Pittsburgh. So you're talking about a battle in Pennsylvania. But I will say this about Georgia. Georgia tends to come home in the closing days of a race. I'm not as concerned about that. South Carolina closes for Trump. Carolina, North Carolina is a battle. Iowa's a surprise here. Iowa typically is going to lean to the Democrats, and that's a tight race. The polling in this race on the national level, that may trend 4 to 6 points in that range. But the battleground states and the changes in population and voters, I think that's where Hillary Clinton has serious concerns.
But the race has actually been getting tighter in the last week.
It has, the national numbers. But there's, some anomalies that are fascinating. It has gotten tighter with some of the better-known polls, but I never believed she was ahead 12.